So I first met James Boening at an NFL Players Association event where he was speaking to the former players and people who are in and around the NFL. And his keynote was a lot about his background in business and some of the shifts he's made over the years through his success and how he approaches life now. So of course, when I go to an event like that, I start thinking, this guy would be great for my podcast because I really want to share him with my audience because he has such great insights. So I want to introduce you to James Boening. He's the executive director and GM of Ourisman Lexus, which, I've had 2 Lexuses, so nice, beautiful, high-end cars. He's an entrepreneur who's been in finance, and he's been in construction, and he's been in health and fitness and restaurants and media. He's just done it all. He's founded this thing called the Alpha Team, which is a group of high achievers who are willing to sacrifice for future creation and greatness and legacy. So that one we're going to talk about. But James, thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I'm very humbled for being on it. Thank you.
So one of the reasons I asked you, the main reason I asked you to be on was because when you stood in front of the room, again, I was really moved by that room. We talked to, it was a lot of retired NFL players, and they were sharing their stories about how they came from nothing or something and then had to go back and reinvent themselves. And you talked about your life and how you were really successful kind of out the gate, but you had a certain kind of success, and then you started taking stock and started shifting the way you do things. Can you give me that story of how you got to be where you are today?
Yeah, so I'll just kind of maybe even go back to the beginning, and we'll kind of go from there. From a really young age, I think I don't know necessarily where it came from, but I had this drive to succeed. And I think it was a little more of a gift, sometimes maybe even in my weakness at times, because I chased it too hard. But anyways, from a very young age, I felt like I always wanted my unfair share. And at 18 years old, I got in the car business. I was just washing cars. And slowly but surely, someone took interest in me, gave me a shot at selling, even though I didn't want to sell, which was a very interesting story, which is long. I won't get into it. But, he almost forced my hand. He was the owner of the store, to force me to go onto the floor. And it kind of took off from there a little bit. I started to find out that I was able to talk in front of people, and the likability thing was easier for me. I really didn't do a lot of selling, I always say. I just tried to get to know people, and then we ended up selling something. So I did it a little unorthodox, even at a young age. I'd go to sales training classes, and they'd say this when they say this, or say this when they say that, and I really never did it. Obviously, I had to go to the classes, but I never really did that. So I kind of found my own way through this, had some marginal success, and did well, and saved money. And at the age of 25, went and opened up my first location. So then from there, I just started growing. I ended up getting another location, and then getting into the construction business, and then I got a restaurant, a fine dining restaurant, and then I got a day spa in Schaumburg, Illinois, and I just kept growing at this rapid rate in all these different industries, and maybe too fast. I felt I probably felt unstoppable, which isn't necessarily a good thing, because sometimes you put yourself in situations that you probably should assess a little better. But I felt like there was nothing I couldn't do, right? I was young, and I really didn't have a mentor. I don't know, my father, I've never met him. So I never really had someone to guide my passion, because I think that's important, maybe to have someone guide your passion, because it can really go deep in the wrong way, quick. And I had a lot of ups and downs. Listen, it wasn't all this, there was a lot of rough times in there. And I lost some businesses, and then I'd just go right back at it, and I'd open up another location, and that one would have success. And so it was a roller coaster ride. It wasn't always, sunshine and roses. It was hard work. It was a massive amount of sacrifice. I think that some people don't necessarily know that unless you've been an entrepreneur, that the amount of sacrifice that goes into it.
Especially when
It's deep.
someone does an introduction of you, so we're taking the highlights. I'm taking the highlight reel of your career to give everybody an idea of what it doesn't talk about the grit and the resiliency and the days that you didn't want to keep going and the sacrifice
Yeah.
your family probably had to make while you were
Yes.
risking here and there.
Yes. Because that's a big part. I'm glad you brought that up, because your family is such a big piece of it, and when you're young, you maybe don't realize that, and you just, I had this drive to succeed in business. Thank goodness I had a phenomenal wife that stood by my side through my nonsense. So we've been married nearly 3 decades, and we've got a 31-year-old and we've got a 24-year-old, and I have 2 grandkids that are 7 and 4, and I can honestly say this. I know it sounds cliche and people say it all the time, but I am a living proof that if my wife wouldn't have been the glue, the family wouldn't have stayed together. It just wouldn't have. I
Sure.
mean, I can honestly, truly say that. She truly just wouldn't give up at times when maybe she
So
probably.
let's parse that. So what did you put her through that she had to be the glue?
I had some personal issues and battles that I had to deal with on some deep levels. I have a highly addictive personality. I think that's probably where some of my passion and drive and comes from. I'm just as much as I'm addicted to a business. I have that personality. So whether it was gambling or whether it was illicit things that you don't want to put in your body, whatever it may have been.
30 years sober from drugs and alcohol here.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Yeah.
And by the way, my podcast, we have sex addiction, we have gambling
Yeah.
addiction. We talk about all this stuff because this is what guys who look like you and me, especially now that we're squeaky clean, don't know that we went through. I just spoke to a group of young people, in their early 20s. And I asked them, how many people would love to talk to me, right? And they said, me. How many people think I'm successful? They all raised their hands. I said, how many know that I was homeless and living in my truck, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
And so we don't really, you and I, we buff it out really nice, but we earned these stripes.
Yeah, I agree. There's a past here. It wasn't easy. So those are the things that she decided to just not give up. She refused to give up on me, give up on the family, and it was the singular reason why I was able to get away from some of the things, beyond a shadow of a doubt. So I would get so driven, and I can say I was addicted to business. And when I say addicted to business, I'll even say I was addicted to money, to where I let nothing get in the way of that linear focus. Nothing. Whether it was my family, my wife, my kids, really the people around me. I'm far from the man that I'm trying to become. So I was a different human being when I was a young man. I was pretty vicious, and I was pretty focused on, it's about the money and nothing will get in the way of that. And obviously I lost it all in 2009, and humbling is beyond the word, but to go from all of what I had at one point in my life to lose the entrepreneur piece and the businesses and the money. I didn't lose my family, didn't lose my health. I didn't lose my home. I'm not saying that, woe is me, but to have built this, somewhat of a small empire for me, and to lose it was extremely
especially
humbling.
when your identity is identified with that.
Yes,
it's as painful as anything that could happen to you.
Yes, I agree. And that's a good way to put it. That's a really good way to coin it, because it was my identity. Wrong identity. It was my wrong identity. There's a balance to everything in life, right? So I took some time off, reflected. I ended up writing a book, writing and publishing a book called God's Cup of Coffee, and just got recentered, and not to dive into my faith here, but just really,
Oh, please dive into your faith. I want to,
yeah,
we need,
okay.
so, when I need to know for myself when, what sparks a change in someone, what sparks a growth, right? So I'm curious as to what sparked that your faith is so deep and that it made such a shift that you wanted to share it with the world and write a book.
Yeah, so for me, I had I think a close relationship with the Lord for me when I was younger, and I will tell you, money took its place. So I stopped reading, stopped going to my church, stopped praying, all those things, and then money became my focus, and I separated that faith, and it was all about me. It was all about me. It was about what I did, how I did it, me. And sure enough, that it was taken, and it was like I'm not gonna say an awakening, but it was an incredible. And in the front of the book, I talk about it. It was just before it was Christmas Eve. I woke up in bed and I had an entire book in my head, because I'm not an author. I've never written anything in my life. I don't even think I'm a good writer. So I've never written anything. And I had a whole book in my head. I woke up and I had this book in my head, and it was the most bizarre feeling. I can't even really describe it, but I had it from front to back, and it was, and I didn't have to, well, what word comes next? It was really bizarre, hard to even explain. So I kind of fought it, and I just kept getting this massive pressure. I gave you this for a reason. Now, are you really not going to listen to this and write it down on paper? And it took me about 30 days, and I fought it and fought it and fought it.
By the way, that's a really short
Okay.
time, because I know so many people, myself included, who have gotten that clear instruction, that clear download, and gone, no, and and that whisper gets your attention. So 30 days.
Yeah, well, I think it was easier to probably get my attention because it was when I had kind of lost it. I'd kind of lost the money, so I was even, I was kind of at that moment, so
what
it
a beautiful
was probably
gift.
Yeah, what a beautiful gift.
That
I
you
agree.
didn't know
And
at the
so,
time.
no, right. And it's easy for me to say now. I wouldn't probably have even said it even a year or two after I lost everything, but not everything. When I lost my businesses, I was so thankful now. I can't even describe it. It's the greatest, one of the greatest things outside being married and having my kids. One of the greatest things that ever happened to me was kind of losing it, because I found out that's not what it's about. And that was the thing. I mean, it was like I still wanted to do business, and I still had that fire inside me to drive, to build things, but it was different this time. It was more about, how can I surround myself now with people and go accomplish something instead of it being about me? And it's real. It happened to me. It's not, there's people that talk about this all the time. There's people that, have gone through rough times and come out the other side, but it was real. It was real.
So we'll say it happened for you, not to
Yes,
you. It happened
there you
for
go.
you.
Yes. Yeah, it did happen for me.
So,
Yeah.
I have similar story, right? And worst thing that ever could have happened, the one thing I never wanted to happen in my life, never, the one thing I didn't think I could live through, turned out to be the keys to my freedom and breaking my heart open and giving me the gift of relationship with God, with other people, with everything. So great. So it looks like death, because it kind of is.
Right. Well, it kind of is. Yeah, you have to almost die in order for it to start over. Yeah. Yes, I agree.
So you talk about and I love the subject matter. The servant leadership movement is a good name for what I see happening in business. And I see people taking up the moniker, whether they're Christian or not, of going into business.
I agree.
I had a gentleman on the phone who on the call on the show, Jonathan Kaiser. He wrote a book, You Don't Have to Be Ruthless to Be Successful. And it's all about servant leadership. It's all about being, serve your ass off and you'll never be broke.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So share with me, because you now give away. You now mentor. You now give all day, every day. Talk to me about that.
So it's more, I don't, so I'm trying to figure out how to say this the right way. I don't wake up every morning and have this agenda of, okay, I'm going to go help this person, and this is what I'm going to do for this person. What I've found is that I really have opened up my heart to, my thing is when I wake up in the morning, I just want to have an open heart into whatever situation that I'm put in, that I best serve that situation. So, it's different than maybe some people would think as, well, I'm going to mentor this person. I'm going to spend 10 minutes with them, and then I'm going to go talk to this person, and then I'm going to go do this show. And I feel like almost like this podcast we're doing, I don't want it to be laid out. I want it to just flow, and I want it to be spontaneous, and I want it to be real. And that's how I think that I've been able to have impact, is because when I go out and I start having conversations with the people that I work with, or people that I don't even work with, people that I just meet, and we just start talking, and I realize that in some way I've helped them, and maybe they've helped me too. It's a two-way street, right? So that has like grown so much. I feel like it's my entire life. Like almost like I'm not doing business. Obviously I'm doing business, but it's like it's hard to describe that I'm moving through my day, and it's really interesting that I feel like all I'm doing is having interactions with people, and it's different. I don't know really how to coin it, but
No, you're doing it well. You're doing a really good job. I'm feeling it. I'm feeling you. So keep going.
yeah. Yeah, so, I've been able to have people walk into my life that, for whatever reason, whether it was in business or in personal at this point, that I've been able to just really connect with. Because I think also if you're going to go, I think you can help people, but I think you have to almost have some type of connection to go deep. And I've been blessed enough to have a lot of people come into my life over the last 8 years that for whatever reason I've been able to go deep with a lot of people, and that has just continued to blossom into something that you mentioned. I call the Alpha Team, but I kind of even changed it a little bit on some of my stuff, and really I'm just calling it the Alpha Team movement, because really it has no, I don't want it to have anything to do with me or really even any of the people anymore. I want it to more be about a movement of just helping people, and it not be about anyone. I want it to be about what's going on and not about the people. So I've kind of like almost changed that even a little bit, because I even felt like it was getting some attention that maybe it shouldn't have. It was more about the people. And so I just added a word and put movement just recently. So,
I'll tell you, the more I learn about what I'm doing, for myself with midlife and mastering midlife and all that, it goes from this thing to a movement, and now it starts to take on a life of its own. You don't own it anymore. It's not you. You're just
right.
now adding the gas to something that you believe in. But now people are taking up the banner themselves.
Yeah, I agree. And it's, small things like this, and I'll just give you a really cool analogy. So Olin Dunford, who's my assistant general manager, been with me for almost 5 years now, started out in sales. And just a phenomenal human being, been able to pour into him deeply, and he's responded really well and has grown in the industry and is, a high-level, high-character human being. So anyway, we're sending him to this thing called A.D.D, Dealer Academy. There's only like 11,000 graduates in 30 years. It's very select. You can't just go, hey, I want to go. Someone who's been to the class has to be your sponsor, or the school. It's a school, not a class. It's a school, year-long school. So it's really a very select group of people that get to experience this. And I mean, it touched me so much. He just was in it for a week and came back, and he was like, one of the instructors in the class kept talking about the Alpha Team. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, how does that happen? Like, I haven't talked to this, I went to the school, and I haven't talked to this instructor in 3 years. But he's been staying and watching me, you know, he started talking to the class about the alpha team, and I'm like, that's what it's about, right? Because I mean, he's talking about how he thinks that you know, it's just different. Have you watched him? Have you seen the people that he's, you know, that are doing this? They're different. And I'm like, that's what it's about. So I just thought it was really cool.
Mm.
Yeah.
So how do you, besides service,
Mm-hmm.
how do you let people serve you? How do you let people in? So obviously your wife is one of them.
Yes.
But do you let people do things for you? How do you feel yourself?
Yeah, that's a good question. You know, I'm not the best receiver.
I had an inkling. I do this for a living, right?
That is something I am actually working on. I almost feel awkward when people do things for me, and I don't know why. I mean, I shouldn't, right? I mean, I know I shouldn't.
There's no should or shouldn't, but it's an interesting thing to watch because you get so much joy out of serving and giving to others, and then people like you and me, we don't allow people to give to us. Why do we deny other people that kindness? Right?
I agree.
And then because actually the truth is, if you're always giving, and this is mine, if I'm always giving, it doesn't allow for true intimacy in a relationship because it's one way. It's not flow. So
Right.
allowing other people, like when my ex-wife and I got divorced, you know, I very much prided myself on, I gave her money. I showed up at her house. I did things for her. I was such a good ex-husband. I did all these things. And then the couple of times when I, you know, like couldn't send a check, or I needed help with something, or I ended up in the hospital and she was unbelievably kind to me, it hurt because,
Interesting.
you
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
like, because I'm no longer in that role. Now I'm allowing someone to feed me. And now it's really become much more intimate and much more, like I said, a two-way flowy street. It's beautiful.
It is. I think I'm getting better at it because I know I need to get better at it. And you know, I everything in life has to have balance, and I know that. So it doesn't matter what you do. I mean, you're right, because I mean, if you can't just constantly do something one way without a return of whatever it is, and without running out. So I always say you do something for so long without a return of something, and it's in business. You can do this in business. If you do something for so long, let's say you go down the wrong path and it's not generating income, but you continue to go down that path because you're not getting a return, right? It's the same thing with personal, you know, it's the same thing in personal life. So I know that. It's something I work on. I do let people in. I totally let people in my life. Like I let them in, and so I have real conversations. But when people try to do a physical, more of a physical type thing, or let me buy you lunch, or more of the physical thing, I don't know why that's more of a hindrance. I can have a two-way relationship with conversation. Really, we can go deep. I can let you in on me.
But you can't pick up the check. You just can't pick up the check.
I want to pay for it. And you know, and I don't know what that is. So, but I have worked on it. Like somebody the other day, we were out at lunch and they were like, I want to pick it up. And I'm like, okay, I'll let you get it, you know, because I know how it makes me feel. I enjoy doing it. So I'm like, okay, they're going to feel good about it too. Let them feel good.
It is a
So
beautiful thing.
I'm working on it.
All right. So one
Yeah.
last question. So, you know, I when in doing a little bit of research, just to get to know you a little bit before we started to talk, I started, you know, I listened to your language, and you're a very, very energetic, driven man for success, right? Focused on, and your language is very focused on success, creating things and innovating, right? And put a lot of output of energy and focused on a result. But also, excuse me one sec, but also on the other hand, totally service oriented, totally balance oriented. And I'm fascinated by people who are able to thread the needle in that. Jonathan Kaiser, it talks about it a lot in his book. And I'm starting to meet people who are starting to figure out that you can be completely energetic and in the flow. And I think in one of your writings, you talked about how when you meet someone like that, you'll notice that they fill the people around them, that they're, that they're enrolling in the people around them, that they're fascinated by what they're doing, right? So can you talk a little bit about how you're starting to thread the needle from, instead of being driven to make money, you're still enjoying that creative juice and that energy, but it's sourcing from a different place?
So I think that has to do with, and I'll go back to the passion and the drive to build things is still there, but I removed the drive for money. So when I removed the drive for money and I kept the drive to build something, it's easy for me. I think it's becoming easier and easier for me to, what you'll say is thread the needle, is I know that if I build people, I build the business. I used to do it backwards. I used to try to build business, and then if the people came along, great. So it's been really, and I will say almost easy, and I don't like to use the word easy very often because nothing really in life worth doing is easy.
It's simple though, but it's very simple.
Yeah.
Build people, and the business builds itself.
It does. It really does. And so I've been able to just really focus on that, where I focus so much on building my team that we really, I'm not going to say never, but we rarely talk about, budgets, we're off, we're not going to hit our objective, what are we going to do? It's way more about, okay, what are we doing that's different than we didn't do yesterday or last week or last month? Let's figure out what we're doing as a team that's different. We're doing something different. It can't always just be the market. So I'm going at it a totally different approach. I'm going at it more of resolving problems through team and through building people than through an objective. And that has really helped me manage people and stay extremely even keeled, because in the end, it really doesn't matter in the end. What does matter in the end is making sure that we're building and leaving a legacy. Because here's what I've learned. When I leave this store or leave a company, whatever, guess what happens? It keeps going. So really, in theory, in some weird way, it really doesn't matter. And when you kind of come to that grips, of course, business matters. But when you come to the grips of, the minutia of the day, it just doesn't matter. And we're just going to figure out how to build people. It just totally changes your dynamic. It totally changes how you get up in the morning, how you move throughout the day. Some of the minutia and the small things don't affect you. It's just a totally different way of living, and it's refreshing. I wish I could have done it younger. I really do. I wish I could have had this new set of eyes younger, so that I could have had an impact longer.
See, the problem with that is, I study this because, why can't I give to people what they get in midlife earlier? And the problem is midlife comes, that change, that shift comes when what was working no longer works. So it was working for you until it wasn't working, and then it gets your attention, right? So as much as we wish, I had to crash and burn, right? There was just the Mark who didn't crash and burn just thought he was going along just fine, right? So karma has to come in at some point and go, this is what you're reaping and sowing, right? That's when you're willing to change. And I've just over and over. In fact, who was I talking to? There's a Harvard study. There's in this book called Mastering Leadership. That they wanted to know, it's only 25% of managers become emotionally intelligent, mature leaders. Only 25%. So I asked the question of the person who brought that stat, so did they find out what it is about the other 75? And they're like, no, Harvard has not been able to figure out what that other 75%, right, is. And it's, and it's not listening to that inner voice. I think it's just the dying at 40, buried at 80. It's like you just get resigned and you don't listen and you don't grow and you don't evolve. And that's why you see a lot of sad people.
Yeah, but it's interesting. You see some people getting it sooner than others.
Oh, tons. I see people getting it
Yeah.
25. I totally see people getting it 25.
Right.
But something's
Yeah.
going to happen to them at
Yeah.
40. It does, because the growth continuum never stops. I don't care, if you get enlightened at 25, at 40, you're going to get enlightened again. And and the resistance.
I agree with
the
that.
hurt is in the resistance. So now
Yes.
I'm off my soapbox. So what are you excited about next? What's coming up in your world that you're excited about?
There's some in business. There's some really neat things. I can't really talk about them too much, but there's some really big things going on that are going to happen in a short amount of time. It'll be very exciting. The platform, being able to help more people. That's all coming together, and what's awesome is I haven't forced it. I've just kind of let it happen naturally, and that's what I'm excited about. I'm excited about when I wake up in the morning all I pray every day is just give me a platform to help as many people as you see that I can do it with every day. So, and it seems like the platform is growing quite rapid, and it looks like it could get really large shortly, which
Beautiful.
is very exciting. Yeah.
So please let me know how I can support you. And if you want to come back and talk about it, we got 25,000 followers who might be interested in what you have to be going next. Thank you for being on the show. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. I appreciate it.
And to everybody else, I really appreciate your time and attention. I love you. Have a great rest of the day.